the central principle. We have skipped that earlier because we did not know anything about protein or DNA earlier. So DNA or RNA earlier. So if you do not know anything about it, you cannot understand how a living system works at all. Um, as of yet, in the biochemistry and in the chemistry of life part, whatever we have discussed is majorly on how what are the molecules which facilitate the life processes of a cell, and from that we got to know that proteins are the most diverse molecule, and they do majority of all the jobs in living systems. And for the proteins to be, what do you say, to be produced in every generation, we need their blueprint of these proteins are to be mentioned somewhere. Blueprint as in how this protein will be formed. At least the chain, protein polypeptide chain will be produced. That information we should have, and that is a place where a place or molecule we call DNA, which it reserves all the informations about the proteins whatever we have in our body. Um, if a virus attacks, virus brings its informations for its own protein with itself, and once it finish infections, it breaks. So it breaks out with its genetic material, that is DNA and or probably RNA. So that means this is a very close guarded secret of life or principle of life. That is why we call this a central dogma. Let me, it's not much of things. This is one additional slide I added. We'll discuss about the central dogma, but before that, I'm just giving a simple recap of what DNA is. DNA is a kind of nucleic acid. We all see proteins are, strips of polypeptide chain, and they are winded in different forms and almost take shapes like this. They are simply threads, and it needs a effort to give them this kind of a shape. This conscious effort is often given by certain other proteins, okay? And nobody knows what they actually what they do. So this is how it works. And if you really make a polypeptide chain at home, you will end up doing like this. So we will make a mess. We can synthesize chemically. We can synthesize protein polypeptide chains. Chains of amino acid. We can do that, not a problem. But finally, getting a full protein is, a functional protein is difficult for us. So we can do this one, but living systems can do this. Okay. But to get we need to understand that the basic requirement of this ball of protein is the thread. Okay, coded by the what are the amino acid sequence should be present in this protein is exactly present in the DNA of our cells, individual cells. And that suppose, and the whole DNA is very long, so it contains the information for 45,000 proteins, maybe more. Okay, so that means once at a time all proteins aren't produced. Okay, so at a time, that's why the DNA, a portion of the DNA is copied in the form of a messenger RNA, which that portion of the DNA which is copied, which is responsible for production of one particular protein or having informations about one particular protein, is called a gene. A stretch of DNA is called a gene. That gene is copied in in a form of a secret message, that's or a chemical message, we can say, called an mRNA messenger RNA. It's an RNA, again, it's a nucleic acid, but it's a single-stranded one. You can see that this is a double-stranded DNA, double helix. This is a single chain of nucleic acid. And this single chain of nucleic acid comes out of the nuclear pore with a lot of help with other proteins present on the surface of the nuclear pore. If it is in prokaryotes, they do not have to come across the nucleus. So, the mRNA is processed then and there in the cell cytoplasm of the prokaryotic bacteria. In fact, same thing happens in your mitochondria as well. Okay. But in case of prokaryotes, as there was a barrier of nuclear membrane, this RNA, messenger RNA, has to come out of the nucleus and meet the ribosomes. Ribosomes are the place where they need to reach with that message. Ribosomes are machines, are actually the decoders, or we can say translators of this message present in the mRNA. What is the message? These are sequence of nucleotides. That's the only message it has got. According to the sequence of nucleotide, the ribosomes read the sequence of nucleotide and gradually produces a polypeptide chain by placing various amino acids just according to the message present here. So this is overall how things work here, and we understood that how nucleic acids were discovered and what is their compositions. You see here, in case of RNA and DNA, there is only one difference. You can see the basic chemical difference is this one. There is in the second carbon atom, the ribose sugar, normally a ribose sugar, is devoid of an oxygen. So deoxy, that's why one oxygen less. This OH group is replaced by hydrogen here. So one oxygen less here in this ribose sugar. And this ribose sugar makes the basic unit of a DNA. That is how a sugar plus a nitrogenous base. Nitrogenous base could be anything among of these five. In case of DNA, only these four nitrogenous bases are used, 2 pyrimidines and 2 purine bases. Okay, so purines are adenine and guanine. So you can see this adenine or guanine. And the sugar with its nitrogenous base, why it is called nitrogenous base? It's because nitrogen gives has a lot of ammonia-like properties in when it gets into an organic molecule. Unless it is a nitrate, then it normally behaves as a basic. It has a basic nature. I mean, in terms of pH, I would say. That's why we call them bases. Okay, they have amino groups, and so these are nitrogenous bases. Now we see here purines have 2 chains, 2 rings, adenine and guanine. Both of them have 2 rings, and slightly there is a difference in the structure. You can see that. Okay, in case of guanine, there is a additional, oxygen carbonyl group here. Here we do not have a carbonyl group in case of adenine. And adenine normally complements with thymine, AT. When there is a double helix happens, see here you can see there are carbonyl groups present. See, that's why this oxygen can have a hydrogen bonding with the nitrogenous bases here. In the H attached to the nitrogenous bases here. And in case of guanine and cytosine here also, although both have carbonyl groups, here also they will have a separations. As it has 2 carbonyl groups of at both the sides, they can make 3 hydrogen bonds literally. So guanine and cytosine can make 3 hydrogen bonds, Adenine and thymine, they can make 2 hydrogen bonds. Okay, so that's how complementation happens. Uracils are present in RNAs, only in RNAs. So a DNA molecule, when it is copied to an RNA, suppose, and the copy happens like a complementation. If you see here, here is the chain, and the whole chain is linked. I mean, individual nitrogen base and the sugar, everything is linked to each other through a phosphate group. You can see here. This is a phosphate group, which is again linked to the 5-dex sugar molecule. Can you see that? 5-dex, the 5th carbon atom of the sugar. Or it can link to the 3rd carbon atom. So you see between the 5th carbon atom and 3rd carbon, 5th, 3rd, 5th, 3rd, that's all. So if there is a chain here, you can say this is a 5' end where the phosphate links to the 5th carbon atom. And this is the 3' end. Here there is no phosphate at the end, right? So what was the 3rd carbon atom? It was an OH group, okay? So everywhere when you see a covalent bond forming, majorly these happen due to a condensation reaction. Okay, I think you remember those organic chemistry. So this whole structure is called a nucleotide. Okay, which also includes the phosphate. If you remove the phosphate, you can also say this one as nucleoside, SID. Fine. Now we have this double helical structures. Double helical structure, when you see this 5' and 3' end, you see the complementation happens here. Like one chain runs this way, the 5', another chain runs completely opposite. Okay, so when we say a double helical DNA, both the chains cannot run in the same direction. That means one's 5' end should complement with the, another chain, which is majorly near the 3' end. Okay, so we normally call the complementation as anti-parallel DNA chains, and they are complementing to each other. What is the force of complementations? Of course, we understood that you can have hydrogen bondings here. As you see here, nitrogen can make hydrogen bonding with carbonyl groups. So carbonyl groups are majorly involved in making the hydrogen bondings. And in case of guanine and cytosine, we can have 3 hydrogen bonds, and adenine and thymine, we have 2 hydrogen bonds. Okay, that's how a whole DNA helix is done. Okay, and when each nucleotides are added, they actually have a small angular divergence. That's why when the chain extends, a single chain itself has a gyration sort of thing. It has a turn. And that turn, when another chain attaches or complements to it, it becomes a double helical structure. Okay. So, so this is a very stable structure as we discussed. In case of RNA, it stays a single chain, but in case of special RNAs, you see transfer RNA. In case of transfer RNA, if you really see here, is that messenger RNA is single chain. When you say ribosomal RNA, they are a globule sort of thing. They interact with proteins and they make a very complex structure. Okay. In case of ribosomes, we saw certain RNA. I just like to show you here. Here, if you see it here very much, these are the portions of the ribosomes which are sometimes which are made of a fusion of RNA and that of proteins. You can see that this is an RNA. This is the large subunit. This is the small subunit. You can see these are RNAs actually. Okay, ribonucleic acid, which attaches to or which complements or complexes with 49 different proteins. to get this subunit. In case the smaller subunit here, they need 33 proteins, but you have a single RNA. But RNA is the small subunit RNA is larger. Okay, so now you understand there is another RNA here it is used, and these ribosomal RNAs are globular in nature. How do they find a globular structure? I will take you to the protein structure itself. That these are the ways protein takes a secondary structure and tertiary structure. Similarly, RNA with although RNA have limited number of combinations of the nucleotides. They have only 4 combination of nucleotides. In case of proteins, they have 20 different combinations. That's why they have a lot of things to select. But RNA cannot have much freedom, but still it can take a globular form. You can understand, you need to see this. Okay, so similar to that of protein, it can find complementations, interchain hydrogen bonding, interchain protein-protein interactions, electrostatic interactions, van der Waals interactions. These are the ways an RNA can also make this hydrogen bondings. I mean, interchain hydrogen bonding, and that's why we got this RNA chain can be a globular in shape. So how many RNAs we knew as of yet? This is a messenger RNA. Then we know about transfer RNA and the ribosomal RNA. In case of transfer RNA, you see some stretches of this RNA has exactly a double helical structure. If you can see this, okay. So UA, how many hydrogen atoms, hydrogen bonding uracil and adenine will have? Thymine and adenine, 2 hydrogen bondings we just discussed, right? Okay. Thymine and adenine, 2 hydrogen bonds. You can see that. When thymine is exactly replaced by uracil, if you see here, okay, what is changing between uracil and thymine? A methyl group, nothing else, right? So will a methyl group restrict number of hydrogen bondings? No, because there are 2 carbonyl groups already present. So number of hydrogen bonding, if the RNA makes a double helical structure by itself, adenine can make double 2 hydrogen bondings with uracil. Okay, and G and C or guanine nucleotide. When it is a nucleotide, we call them guanosines. Okay, so so guanine based nucleotide and cytosine based nucleotide, they can have 3 normal 3 hydrogen bonding. This is how they pair, base pairing. Now, when you see these things, and what is the role of a transfer RNA? What do we understand here? Transfer RNAs are defined. This particular zone of the transfer RNA has a very specific, nucleotide which gets complementation to that of which is open. It is waiting to complement with the messenger RNA, the nucleotides of messenger RNA. And then if it finds complementation, then this portion which holds the amino acid will dump the amino acid in the ribosome so that the ribosome will be able to make a peptide bond. Okay, so that means we have 20 amino acids, so we can have 20 varieties of tRNAs, and of course individual tRNA we can have at least 20 varieties of tRNA, you can say. And individual tRNA will have a individual kind of amino acid carrier, and then it will have a unique code here. That's a very interesting history of discovery of genetic code. When we just saw here, I'm not allowed to talk more about on this. We may discuss in the genetic part. You see here, when we are seeing the chain of proteins are being coded, that means with different amino acids, placed in different portions of the chain. What do you see in the gene here? Gene here, you can see a complementation here, that is A, C, T, C, C, T, G, A, G, G, A. So it doesn't mean anything, but this particular portion of the gene, if you say this portion can actually, if you simply produce a mRNA complementing this portion, this will actually code for a glutamic acid. Okay. So this portion will code for a proline. This portion will code for a threonine. These are the short forms of amino acids. So we call this genetic codes as triplet codes. Okay, so the sequence of nucleotides, they arrange in, okay, to give a meaningful message, and which will finally be converted to a protein. Suppose the frame changes completely like this. Okay, you are starting from here, then you are reading like this. Suppose you start from here. So what do you read? CTC, then CTG, GAGG, and then GA, then third one again. So that means you will be having one short amino acid. That means 3 amino acids only be coded for this. And that 3 amino acids will be completely different. Okay, that means one single nucleotide deletion from your gene can cause serious problems. Here we had a substitution mutation or point mutation, we call it. There are deletion mutations also. Now, the other day, some guy was mentioning, some of you were mentioning about Down syndrome, okay? And here, in that case, a whole chromosome or portion of chromosome is missing. Just imagine how the person will behave, okay? So, so a lot of things are there in the molecules itself. And now, from the essence of life, can we really now come to a conclusion that life has a lot of things to do with the molecule itself and the whole informations, how the life works and all. It is there in the protein, and that information, how what kind of protein has to be produced, are present in the DNA. So this idea was later called as central dogma. What is a dogma? Dogma is a set or sets of principle. Okay, is a principle or sets of principle, which this is the Oxford University Press definition. That's the Oxford Dictionary definition. So these principles are laid down by an authority as incontrovertible truth. Okay, that means a very sound truth. Okay, some principles can be truth also, and that is what we try to define in living system. There, yes, if you are saying moving, motion, everything as life, what a person just wanted to interested to know the basic fundamental of life, what should we tell him? Should we give them a book? This is the fundamental, or can we bring it down to some basic sets of principles? So without this, life is not possible at all. So that trying to define this, the central, that means the core principles or core principle of life, that is called the central dogma. Now, did you understand how this living systems work? I think you must have some idea about it. Among this, we haven't yet discussed two varieties of molecules. One is carbohydrates, another is lipids. Vitamins, minerals, again, we have yet to discuss about it. Okay. But when you see central principle, when you see life can, one of the most important principle of life is to be able to pass the informations from different generations. That thing, same set of proteins, same number of proteins should be produced in the daughter cell than that of the mother cells. Then this information can be only taken up by a molecule that is called DNA. So the first central thing in a living cell is the DNA. Okay, and how this molecular, we call this as molecular biology, because now when we do not see cell interacting with each other, we do not see cell eating another cell, now we see molecules interacting with each other, and in a very biological fashion, meaning molecule duplicating itself, molecules producing another molecules. So it's very biological. Okay, so reproduction, duplication, these are very biological principles. Okay, so this idea was given by Francis Crick. He is one of the person who deciphered the DNA double helical structure, that DNA exists and they have a double helix intertwined against each other in the state as it is in our living system. So Crick was had this belief that yes, this is a central principle. DNA is the central molecule, and it actually passes the informations. But there are certain exceptions. How does it work? The main central dogma. How does it work? We just discussed it earlier. I'm just repeating it. I'm not bringing nucleus and anything in between. No organelles in between. Just see that how molecules and molecule are responsive. If you have a stretch of DNA, DNA can replicate itself. Okay, that means one molecule of DNA can produce another molecule of DNA through an enzyme called DNA polymerase. And the process of duplicating DNA is called DNA replication. You all know replica. Okay, replica meaning duplicates, right? So making a replica of itself or making a duplicate of itself is called a DNA replication process. That means DNA can duplicate itself. The process is again a bit complex. I did not want to go deeper into it. So a lot of Nobel Prizes were awarded in this. This year Nobel Prizes were awarded to a specific group who were working on editing of the DNA. Like just there is a DNA and your system can simply chop a portion of the DNA and throw it out. Is it possible? And can you do it very targeted way? Like you want simply this portion to be chopped off. Can you do that? So that's became a technology now called genome editing technology, and that gave people Nobel Prize this year. So we have a DNA molecule. DNA can replicate itself. Also, if you want to produce other molecule, especially protein, then it can produce a RNA. What kind of RNA it is this? We call it a sense RNA, because exactly, see, when we have two strands of DNA, strand A and strand B, sorry, strand A and strand B, I'm not labeling it, just imagine. Now when a RNA is produced, RNA has to be again has to complement any one of these strands. Okay, so similarly, the gene, when we see ATG and that same codes cannot be in the other strand of DNA because they are complementing each other. Just remember that. Okay, so you need to define the strand or the molecule of DNA which actually holds that gene. Other molecule is just to complement each other. Why complementation is essential, and it can be good for evolution, we can discuss later. But as of yet, just see that The DNA has to open the complementation and produce a messenger RNA here, and we call it sense messenger RNA because this RNA is the exact copy of the gene, okay, and it is a complementation of the gene, okay, remember that. This complementary or messenger RNA, sense mRNA, is produced through an enzyme called enzyme catalyzes the production. This enzyme is called RNA polymerase. It's not a single enzyme. When we say DNA polymerase, these are not, in case of eukaryotes, these are not single enzymes. Okay, in case of bacteria, you can have single enzymes. In case of eukaryotes, they are complexes, large number of proteins are involved in that. So here you have RNA polymerase. It can copy a portion of DNA and get a sense RNA out of it, sense mRNA out of it. This sense mRNA can be directly translated to a protein chain. Okay. Now, this is the central principle we just discussed. Okay. There are some exceptions to it. That's why we need to understand the exceptions to the central rule. Central rule is this one. Okay, but unless we discuss the exceptions, a rule is never proven. Okay, central principle is never proven. There are places in our body, also in many viruses, where they can give out a sense RNA. They will have their genetic material not as a DNA, rather they would have an RNA genetic material, and that RNA will not immediately get translated to protein and destroyed. No, that doesn't happen to that RNA. That RNA engages another enzyme called reverse transcriptase enzyme. Okay, this process is called transcription process. You see, DNA to RNA is a transcription process. Now, transcription process is inverted, so we call it reverse transcription. What happens here? RNA is converted to DNA back. Okay, so can there be a double helical? No. Reverse transcriptase enzyme can produce only a single chain of DNA. So if you have to make a double helical, so you have to work, the virus has to work harder. So they can do double helical. They can produce single strand of DNA. That means SS, or we can call ssDNA, single stranded DNA. Single chain of DNA. So this is called reverse transcription. There is RNA can also do one thing. RNA can directly produce RNA also. It's complementary RNA. The process is called RNA-dependent RNA replication. And what is the enzyme required here? RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. Many viruses do also have this kind of system also. See, viruses do not have any machinery of making protein and nothing like that, okay? As we discussed that having a completely folded protein, and it's a very difficult job. You need a very complex machine for that. But all organisms like viruses, they cannot carry these machines. They decide not to carry these machines, rather hijack these machines from different organisms. If it is a bacterial virus, these viruses attack bacteria, then these viruses hijack bacterial protein synthetic machineries with their this protein synthetic machinery only now are programmed to produce their own kind of the virus's protein, not the host protein. And it happens in eukaryotes also, similar thing. And I know a very important virus in your silk industry. So the silkworms often are killed by certain viruses which has RNA as a genetic material, and it can have a special enzyme when it infects. It not only releases its RNA into the host larva of the silkworm, but also it releases this particular enzyme called RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. And now it can make a antisense RNA. This is negative sense antisense RNA. Now, if you use a similar antisense, you can design an antisense RNA in your body or in your laboratory. You can actually prevent, if you have DNA of some disease and you do not want that protein to be produced more and more to cause more disease, then you can stop the production without interfering your DNA. Simply, you just keep on injecting small interfering RNAs, which are normally are siRNA or antisense RNA, which can complement this RNA, sense RNA, will not allow the ribosome to translate this RNA, and you will not get the protein. So if you do not have a protein, so no problem of the disease. Okay, so this is the central principle when we say this is how molecules, produce other molecules. And if you really see here, exactly the copies of molecules are being made here. And this is majorly using certain genetic codes. And these proteins which are actually doing that, if you allow this protein to do any to produce any RNA, it will not be able to. It needs a template. This is kind of a template to produce another replica of it. DNA polymerase also works like that. So both the strands open up and individual strands are copied individually, and that's how two different DNAs are generated. As we discussed in the bacterial cell division, the replication fork appears. That's a fork. I mean, when the DNA double helix, they tear apart, strand apart. So now there had been a question that in the earlier organisms, or when we discussed about again the initiation of life, which molecule should have originated first? DNA, RNA, or protein? We understood that to pass on informations, we need either of these sequenced or very definedly, neatly organized molecules. Okay. There are some believers. We learned that proteins can be produced. Okay, but to pass on information to the next generations, it's tricky actually. So some believers are there who say that the first genetic material could be RNA rather than DNA. Not because we have certain RNA as genetic material of viruses. It's not like that. RNA is much more a versatile molecule than DNA. DNA's main job is exclusively to record and keep informations. That's all. Now you can see RNA can do many things. RNA can serve as a template for producing its own RNA, so as DNA can do. RNA can directly translate. You need RNA as the intermediate. You cannot have a DNA translating directly the informations to protein. You need RNA to convert it to protein, the informations to protein. So, and there is surprisingly, and proteins, why we need proteins? Proteins can do a lot of reactions and do a lot of functions. If you really see that one of the earliest organelles in our systems, that is ribosomes, it has got 50% or to 60% of RNA and then protein. Just see here is that And in bacteria, you do not have many other organelles other than ribosomes, right? One membrane-bound organelle, that is lysosome. So when you see ribosomes have these kind of ribosomes present, ribosomes can be created majorly with RNAs, that is ribose nucleic acid. Then we can really think that the earlier molecule can make certain organelles also. It can, they have, some people have discovered enzyme-like activity in ribosomes. Okay, so not ribosomes, I would say in RNA-based molecules. We often called ribozymes. Although most enzymes are proteins, okay, 99.999% of uh, enzymes are proteins, but you still have RNA enzymes also. So as we just saw, RNA can take structures and forms, and they can they can do enzymatic action. So that means RNA, if evolution or if nature had gave its shot or played its bet on RNA, there could have been this forward motion of life. Otherwise, if randomly DNA would have started, it must have been finished in that generation itself. RNA could have done three different things, so it could have served as a genetic material. It could have served as its executive. It's kind of a single person company. The executive, sales, management, and record keeping, everything is done by the same person. Okay, so that would be all for today. So if you have any doubts, you can ask.